Hello, and welcome to another episode of Product and Cake. Today, in the virtual recording studio, as always, is with me, Paul. How you doing, Paul?
I'm good. Hello, Gonche. So good to have you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm also really doing good. It's snowing here, so I love it. I love the snow. Even though today is really cold and it's not snowing, but I see still snow outside. There's still chances to go play snowball fight. I like that.
Against our guest today, or which transition did you envision?
Yeah, we have also a very special guest to me, and hopefully the partner in snowball fights.
Yes, here with us today is Annika Grunewaldt. Welcome to our podcast, Annika.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me. Happy to appear on the podcast that I've been listening to for years. And happy to look behind the curtain and be part of the project.
Yes,
Nice.
Fantastic. Here in our virtual recording studio with all the nice decoration, because we are celebrating season 4 with awesome product people all around the globe. And today you are with us, Annika, as Senior Product Manager at ImmoScout. That is very thrilling because I guess everybody more or less in Berlin who is looking for a flat is using that app or is just interesting in seeing what is around them. But before we dive in, let us go into our check-in question. Nice. Today I would like to ask, which projects give you energy? Annika, do you want to start?
Yes, I would love to. So for me, I have a project of basically finding the perfect breads for me. I'm German, so this is quite an important topic for me. And I've been trying to find different ways of baking throughout the past years. And I'm always happy to try out something new. And this gives me a lot of energy. Like, even if the process is quite hard and lengthy and complex sometimes, it's definitely worth it. And it doesn't drain me, but actually gives me more energy.
Nice. That's a very good one. And what about you, Gonche?
I was thinking for some minutes about this question, and I realized the podcast. Every time I join the recording, I'm like, it was such a hard day, such a long day. And then afterwards, I'm leaving the virtual recording studio with the biggest smile on my face, and I'm really happy. And yeah, this is my energy giver project.
Nice. Also a good one.
How about you, Paul? What gives you energy? And you cannot steal my answer.
Yeah, I thought so. And that would be so easy, but we always try to give different answers, right? For me, recently it is running again. So I had a knee pain for a while, but now I found an osteopath and he's really helping me out. And it is so fantastic to run again. And yesterday, as it is very icy at the moment, it was my slowest time of all times, basically. But still, I came back with a lot of energy and clear mind.
Nice.
That is fantastic.
Nice. That's really good. Unfortunately, I have no skills in running. Yesterday, I tried to walk fast for 3 seconds and immediately fully face planted on the ground. Like, immediately fell.
Yeah, not the right grounding conditions to start that hobby. Wait a few more days and then the ice is gone.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you have to wait, in the meantime, you can listen to awesome Product and Cake episodes.
Yes.
We finished season 3 with talking about everything you need to know about how to become a product manager and what is important and what not and what to take a look at. And now we are so happy to talk with a product manager.
Exactly. And we have already some kind of questions from you. I at least have a lot of questions to understand how come you ended up in the world of product management, what part of product management you enjoy the most. But we go one by one. And first, can you tell us a little bit about your title and what you do?
Yes, so my title is a Senior Product Manager. I've been working at ImmoScout for, 1.5 years now, I think. And I am basically responsible for the private vertical. I don't know if you know, but ImmoScout basically split into professional and private, and I take care of the listings. So whenever you see a private listing, that is something that ran through my system.
Nice. That sounds quite fun. And I think a lot of people, as Paul said, at least in Berlin, have seen or interacted with the product that you work on. And I want to also understand a little bit your personal journey that made you land in product management, because product management, as far as I know, is quite an interesting role that there's no linear path to become a product manager. People from different walks of life find themselves, or the product management calls their name and they end up as a product manager. So what's your calling? What happened to you?
It's a great question, because every time I meet another PM, I'm basically asking the same question. In German, we have a great word for it. It's called Quereinsteiger, which is basically if you're in a job that you didn't necessarily train for, or you didn't study the specific field, but you're changing into it. And for me, it was quite a different path as well, I would say. I studied European studies, which is something that a lot of people don't necessarily bring into connection with product management, because it is not. It's basically, or what I did was a combination of politics, economics, cultures, and languages. So it was a very generalistic study, I would say, which looking back was great for becoming a product manager. And I actually was working in a lot of different places since I was 15. Little like small mini jobs here and there, and also during my university times. And I was basically trying out a lot of things and trying to see what was the common path. And I kind of wanted to go into politics, and I was interested in PR and in marketing. So I had to do an internship, actually, and I decided to do it in Berlin at a tech startup. It's a catering platform, and I started there as a marketing intern, basically. And I did this for a couple of weeks. And then I got approached by one of the other departments if I don't want to switch from marketing. And at that point, I was actually quite interested, because I realized marketing is nothing that I want to work in. We were basically mostly responsible also for SEO and copy or content writing, let's say. I still recall writing a very lengthy article about a fish platter, which was nothing that I was necessarily interested in. And so I basically switched into supply. In this part, it was mainly related to business development and partner management of our catering partners. And this was actually quite fun, because there was not a lot of base that was there. We did a lot of things from scratch. I worked then in sales and partner management kind of on this side. But since the startup, I also did a lot of other things. And a big part of that was, basically business development. And I looked into different ways on how we can improve our partnerships, how we can grow our, let's say, partner base, our monetization strategies, and basically also our product portfolio. At that time, we also had product and tech within the startup. The product was one head of product and one product manager, who also just recently joined, and was a junior who was an intern before as well. And that went on for a couple of years. And I grew more and more into a connection with the product management, because as you can imagine, having one junior product manager, he was very, very busy. And we took over more and more responsibilities of technically what was his. And it was really fun. And I love to be involved in the planning. I love to see how it went. I love to see how you can actually deliver things, what kind of impact you can have. And this is where I basically kind of, had my first interactions with product management. And then we actually had a trip to Poland with a couple of my colleagues, all developers. We were actually getting along quite well. And the other product manager, and the boyfriend of one of the developers, who actually has a company to develop product managers. And on this trip to Poland, we talked a lot, and the developers asked me why I don't want to become a product manager. And I was like, oh, actually, I did not really think about it. I wasn't necessarily sure how this role still looked like. What is it for? What are my responsibilities? Because I think for me, and as well as for a lot of people out there, they don't know what product management is. It's not a very clear role. It's not very transparent, even within companies where there is product, what they are doing, or at least in companies that maybe don't do it so well. And I thought about it, and I talked to a lot of colleagues and friends about this opportunity. I educated myself about the role. And then it was time to make a decision, and I decided to go into product management. And I really liked it from the very first second. And after a couple of weeks, I reflected on how I landed there and why did I become a PM. And I went back to all of the jobs I had and what I did there and what was the common kind of goal, common path of what I did. And most of the things in every single job I had was to find ways how to work more efficiently. And this was such a pain for me to watch things being inefficient, to watch people being unhappy with processes and things, how they go at work. And I think this was where I then had a great fulfillment, or found a great fulfillment in product management, to really dive deep into everything and try to understand it and how to make it better.
Cool. Yeah, thank you very much for sharing. I also think that describes very well the curiosity you need to bring, right? And to identify different stakeholders, manage them. So when listening to your story, a lot of points, as you said afterwards, seems to had you pushed already to that job description. That is fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing. Super interesting. I would be interested in your day-to-day work today. How would you describe your role contribution to the larger vision of your company? Because when you say you are somehow in the middle, you are talking to a lot of different people, it is a difficult role to define. But also it is super crucial because a lot of information in the end lands on your desk.
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say how I would define it is, first of all, to make sure that we do have a company strategy that is being able to be broken down. So for me, it's important to actually have something in writing or in a presentation, however format you have it, that is or has the possibility to be understood by the majority of the company in the same way. And I see this in a lot of companies, that there is kind of a strategy and a vision defined, but everyone kind of has a different understanding of how it works. And I think especially on my level, which is also quite deep down into the product, it is very important to make sure that everyone has the same understanding and that we can work towards the same goal. Because at the end of the day, yes, the management creates the vision and creates the strategy for the entire company. But at the end of the day, they are not the people who are delivering the single project or initiatives. And if the communication there is broken it won't work. The things that we deliver won't actually pay into the company vision and strategy. And for my role, what I see is that it's very important to give feedback and to make sure that this is in place. From me basically to the management, and then on the other hand from me down, or basically also on the same level with the other PMs I'm working with to align on this, to make sure that we understand how we can contribute to this common vision and strategy, and then also invite the developers into it, because I've seen a lot of times that product and tech don't actually work together. They kind of have different visions and strategies and things that they want to achieve. And from my experience, it works 15 times better if we actually work towards the same goals. So yeah, this is for me the second part then, to make sure that everyone I work with has the same understanding of the goals that we are working towards. And then on a very granular, deeper level, of course, is in my role is to find the things that have an impact. We estimate it with business cases, of course, and don't want to go into too much details, but this is where then my role is to basically make sure that the best ideas find their way into the product.
I think written strategy with a shared understanding is definitely such an important topic. If you imagine to join a new company, also maybe as a senior product manager, and there is no written strategy, what would be your approach? Would it be, hey, you need that, deliver it to me so I can distribute it? Or would it be more, hey, I took all the information and give you a first draft? How would you tackle that missing piece of information? I'm just curious because I assume a lot of people are in that situation and you always need to position yourself.
Mm-hmm. So that's also an interesting point. I would partially say that was what happened when I joined. For me, it was first of all understanding if it actually doesn't exist, or if it's just not accessible, if it's not transparent. Because a lot of times you ask someone and then it's like, oh yeah, we have maybe this or we have this. And maybe the issue is not that it's not there. The issue is that it's not accessible. So before I dive into creating something completely new, I actually make sure that I reach out to the right people and understand what's their perspective on having this element. Because I think also having these buzzwords of product vision and product strategy can also have a different understanding in each company. And at the end of the day, I don't create the product vision for the entire company. I don't create the strategy. So I need to make sure that the people who are responsible for this have the same understanding as I have, or maybe I need to change it. I need to understand how the company defines it and if it's something that actually helps the company or not. In a lot of cases, I would probably already draft something and at some point to be like, at least this is the framework that I would like to follow, or where I see certain benefits, and then work it upwards, work together on how to achieve this. But it definitely also depends on the size of the company and how much impact you can have. What I always recommend is to at least focus on your own part of the product and create a product vision or a product strategy for that part. And then you can take this as an understanding of where you want to go, and then basically align it with the higher levels within the company and see if this is actually that is contributing to the goal or not. And then give some feedback again to be like, okay, I think it would be beneficial also for other departments if we can have something in writing, which makes it actually much more efficient for all of us to work towards the same goal.
Nice. That sounds, at least in my perspective, quite a good position to be. I also want to understand a little bit two sides of this role. That what are the biggest challenges that you're facing in your current role, but also on the flip side of it, what's the best part of being in this role? Because product management has a lot of challenges, as you also already mentioned a couple, but also on the flip side, it's quite energizing. It's quite exciting. It's kind of like a quest to find a new answer. So I want you to give a couple of points in your current role as a senior product manager.
Yes, let's start with the challenges and let's get to the positive after. I would say the biggest challenge is working in kind of a cross-functional way with very different teams that are not part of your vertical, that are not necessarily part of your product, but you need them because you have some kinds of dependencies. So whenever we want to develop something new, we have a new idea, or we want to also just fix this one bug that has been bugging you for a year now, and it's not being prioritized. You don't have the power to make this happen, and you are very dependent on other teams. And I think the bigger the organization, the bigger these problems become, and it really depends on the management, on how they are supporting and kind of doing this prioritization. But yeah, I think this is for me at least, the most draining part, where you're okay, I just need this one thing. And it's not that hard to do. But yeah, it's I think one of the toughest things that a PM needs to handle, to make sure that also these teams understand why you are asking this. Why is it necessary for you? You need to have the reasonings ready. You should never just come with a problem. You should always come prepared. You should know what's the business impact. You should know what's the impact for the users. And that makes it much, much easier for everyone to prioritize it. But at some points, there will also be teams who will not have the capacity to support you. And I think this is a big challenge also in planning new initiatives, planning delivery times, planning timelines, to take this into consideration, basically, because it's always an unknown variable.
Especially in bigger corporates, right? I mean, how many people working at ImmoScout?
1,500, roughly.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. That's a lot of teams and initiatives that going in parallel.
Yeah. The other parts of a challenge, but which also brings me to the positive, I would say, is data. It really, really, really depends how a company handles data. What is the infrastructure that they have built? What are the capabilities for product managers to kind of do their own data analysis? What kind of resources do they have? What kind of support do they have? Are there business analysts or the data analysts? Because at the end of the day, if you are a PM that does not have reliable data, it is incredibly hard to make data-driven decisions, basically. And this is, quite a challenge, I would say. Not saying that this is the case at ImmoScout. I just see it in a lot of different places and also in different parts of products. So this is a part where I think there needs to be a lot of push from product to make sure that this is being taken care of. It's in place, that you define what you can do. For me, it was a really, really big change coming from a startup where I built up the tracking infrastructure, where I did the tracking, and where I had all of the freedom to influence it and to make sure that it's clean, to make sure that it's handleable, to a corporate where I don't have that, and where I cannot do my own analysis. I don't know the data sets, especially coming new into a company. This is always a challenge, but it's very crucial to understand how your user behaves and how your features or your product is performing. And this brings me to the positive part, which for me is one of the things that gives me the most energy. This is the most interesting part of my job, is actually data. I love it. I think it is super interesting. I love to work with it. I love to deep dive into it. I love to work with people who have a similar passion, or maybe even not, and try to spark this in them and try to teach people how important data as a base is, and making sure that, this is being set up, or that you can always work on it, right? It's never fully lost. Sometimes you cannot retrospectively fill it or make a backfill, but at some points it's also good to just start now. I think now is always yesterday was best, and the next best is today. So at some point we will have the data, and I know sometimes it's not prioritized, but it should be a general part of the product manager's work.
Yeah, very well said. Nice. I totally agree. I also really love diving into the data and understanding different connections between the data and finding weird things in it. I think that's a lot of fun. And I also want to understand, because as you also told us a little bit about your product journey, it had a lot of twists and turns. And one of the things you mentioned was you educated yourself on what is product management. And I want to also understand, was there any specific book, video, courses, or even people or podcasts like this one that helped you significantly, that shaped you to the product manager that you are?
Yeah, I mean, if this podcast would have existed back then, my decision would have been easy. But yeah, I think I wouldn't say that there was one specific book or one specific source that made my decision easy or that was opening my eyes for product management. I think the biggest impact to me was really talking to people, and especially also developers, because that was the closest team members you will work with, and understand how they see it, what is important for them, but also talk to other people in the company, how they perceive the role, what is important, what are things that are working well, what are things that don't work well. And of course, you can read all of the books from whatever, Marty Kagan or something. It's all helpful. I think it is something that every PM should do in a certain way. I think it doesn't need to be a very specific book, but of course there are some resources that are fairly famous or well known. But I think the biggest part is to start. And for me, it was always learning by doing, had the best results. And when I faced a problem, or when people told me I was facing a problem, I maybe didn't see it myself, then I could go specifically into this topic and try to educate myself about this. And I think it is quite important to be curious as a product manager. You need to be actually interested in the role itself, in the job itself, and into the product and the people you're working with. And I think then it just comes by itself. If you are following this approach, then you will see and hear the things that you need. And I think the best part, or the advice I would give to other product managers or people who want to become product managers, is to go to meetups or to talk to people who work in the field, or to people who work with product managers. It will always give you a very different understanding than a book gives you.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And I also think that fits very well to what you described about the data, right? Because data could also be so overwhelming. And I think both of you living the luxury life of a product manager that have access to a high traffic website. So you have data, we in the smaller world fighting slightly more for it. But nevertheless, it does not depend so much, right? Because you should state hypothesis, measure something, and then exactly what you said, talk with people about it, because it is so easy to read a book, misunderstand it, and then see some data and misinterpret the data, and coming to really strange conclusions that someone with a fresh mind or with an outside perspective see it at the first glance. And that should not make you feel bad or stupid or anything, because it is so easy from the outside, right? But moving it forward from the inside is really what makes the difference here. So when you could travel back, but more or less you said it already, but if you could travel back to your early days in product, is there something you would whisper in your ear, something like an advice? You said already an advice, but is there, what else? What else would be something that would have helped you in your early days of your career?
I think there would have been 1,000 things that would have helped me in the beginning of my career. Because I when I also started, I didn't necessarily have a lot of mentoring or guidance. I did a lot by myself. But I think this is also the reason why I wouldn't whisper something in my ear. Is I like the way how it went. I like that I was confronted with the problems I was confronted. This is the way on how you learn. And the first-hand problems you will face will always be a better lesson than the ones that you learn about before. I think this is what all parents will agree, and trying to teach your kids a lesson, but they need to experience it themselves to fully get it. So in this way, I think I actually would just watch myself and have a little smug on my face and be happy that I made the decision I made.
Nice. Good one. Self-trust, I would translate it.
Yeah, and that's really beautiful.
Is there anything on your desk you are learning right now? I mean, beside making the perfect bread, but I thought about more product related.
Yeah, there are a couple of things that I'm getting myself a little bit deeper in that are not necessarily 100% part of my product manager role, but more of the overall performance of a product and what influences it. So not just looking into my part, the user enters my product and leaves, but also to understand a bit more of the marketing parts of SEO and SEA, what kind of influence it has, how can we understand the performance. And yeah, I would say this is something where, I'm trying to just educate myself a little better. I started in marketing, maybe I'm back now to a certain way, but I think it's the biggest part that, or the most interesting part of this is that this is basically the value proposition and the USPs that you give to a user come through marketing. It's the first thing they see. It's a one-liner of an ad, and basically we promise the user something, then they get to your product, and we need to hold this promise and make sure that the user is seeing what they expect, or even see something better than they expected.
Yeah, that's also very nice, and I also really think it makes sense to, as a product manager, to get deeper into other functions in the company. So as you said, getting into marketing a little bit, understanding how they work, getting into sales, understanding how they work. But to close the show, we play a little game before your last words on the podcast, and telling us how listeners can find you and reach out to you if they have any questions or they want to connect with the senior product manager. Before that, we want to play a little game. It's called Product Pet Peeves. And I will give you some statements. You just need to tell me it's a yay for you or a nay for you. Are you jiving with this idea or not? These are different statements that can happen in a company, and everything in the company can be great. Just this tiny little thing. So the team follows a build fast and ask for forgiveness later approach.
First impression, yay.
Okay, alrighty. The product manager has to defend every decision with a deck of slides in stakeholder meetings.
No.
All right. I sometimes actually think that makes a lot of sense. Not every single decision, but I think it is important that the product manager, not also with a deck of slides, but have a great reasoning behind their decisions, or maybe logging their decisions somewhere. So for me,
that's 100%. I'm a big fan of documentation.
All right, good. That would have been the other one. That product managers are asked to document everything, which I assume you already said it's a yay.
Yes.
It's a podcast, so we need a verbal answer.
Yay.
Yeah, well, Annika is shaking her head. Yes. At some point we will have a video cast, and that can be used as well. Last but not least, from my yay or nay game is a new feature is prioritized based on the request from the sales team and the VP of product.
Nay.
All right. Any reasoning there?
Yeah, I would say the feedback is really important, especially from a sales team. They have direct contact to the users. And if it's something that is really wanted by the sales team, I think this is super important. From the VP, maybe in a more direct of a strategic approach, I think it's really important to understand their reasonings also from sales. Is it one customer that wanted it, or is it all of them that have been screaming for a year? But I think a decision shouldn't be made by them. But I think their input is incredibly valuable.
All right.
Yeah, that is interesting. It leads very fast to sales debt, right? If your sales team constantly promise things that are only aligned on a far away level from their executive teams, then could lead to a lot of frustration in the team, but also with your customers.
Definitely.
That's true. So, Annika, thank you so much for joining to the Product and Cake podcast with us today. Can you please tell us quickly where can people find you? How can they reach out to you?
Yes, I think the best way would be on LinkedIn. My name's Annika Grunewaldt with the DT at the end, not for everyone to get confused. But I think you're also going to post it and you can see me. There's actually only one person with my name on LinkedIn, so you should be able to find me. And yeah, just drop me a message. I'd be very happy to have a chat with anyone. Looking forward to hear from you. And thank you very much for inviting me on the podcast. It was really a lot of fun.
Thank you a lot for joining, and we are super curious to see what new features you will build in ImmoScout.
Stay tuned.
Bye.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening to this episode. And please don't forget to recommend this podcast to anyone who's interested in a career as a product manager, is working as a product manager, wants to learn more about product management, has seen a product manager in their life, has heard about product management, or has worked with any product in their life ever.
Let's talk in the next season with people who saw a product manager, a person who worked in product from the far.
I agree.
Nice.
Thank you. Bye.